When you observe any photograph, you will notice that there is an area or a band in the image which appears focused as compared to the rest of the image. This area which appears focused is called zone of sharpness or depth of field. Theoretically, lens will focus only at one point or plane, but some areas in front and behind the focus point will also appear in focus. This area in front of the focus plane is 1/3, whereas behind it is 2/3. This means if this is the depth of field, then this plane at the junction of 1/3 and 2/3 is the focus plane. In other words, if this is the focus plane, then 1/3 area in front and 2/3 area behind this will constitute a depth of field. More area appearing focused in front and behind the focus plane means the depth of field is more. If this area is less, it is called a shallow depth of field. There are two parameters which decides what will be the extent of this 1/3 and 2/3 area. In this video you will learn what are these two parameters, and as usual in the end a practical tip on how to maximize a depth of field. The first factor which decides the extent of zone of sharpness is effective aperture diameter. Aperture, as we all know, is hole inside the lens. Its primary function is to allow the light to enter to expose the film or a sensor. Its diameter or opening can be controlled either from the lens or nowadays from the camera settings. The additional function of aperture is to decide depth of field. But let me give you a brief and handy explanation of aperture before we move further in discussing its role in deciding the depth of field. Aperture diameter is designated by f number or f-stop. The formula is like this. F number is equal to focal length upon effective aperture diameter. Since aperture diameter is in the denominator, the f number will increase if the diameter decreases, and vice versa. This means f2.8 is a bigger diameter vis-a-vis f16. So with this understanding, let me give you one practical demonstration. Do it with me, and after you have finished watching this video, I assure you that this practical tip will remain permanently embedded in your mind and you will never forget it. Suppose you wish to look at a multiple subject or object at a very far extreme. What you do? You constrict your irises and try to focus at a distant place. What it does? It increases your zone of sharpness. On the other hand, hold your finger at a distance of around 1 feet and there should be some written material at a distance of around 3 feet. Now widen your irises and look at the finger. You will notice that you can barely see that words which is written behind, but they are not readable. Now you constrict your irises. Look at the finger and now you will observe that that particular written material which is behind is also now readable. Do this experiment and this will remind you on how the aperture functions. So same way, if the aperture size of the lens is small, then the depth of field is more. Like our irises are constricted, we can see at a far distance. If we open up the irises, the background becomes blur. It is not readable. So if the aperture used is wide open, then the depth of field is shallow. If we speak in terms of f numbers, then f2.8 is a wider diameter and will result in a shallow depth of field vis-a-vis f8 or f11, which are narrow apertures and will result in a greater depth of field. Look at these examples and check the f number used and correlate with what I just explained. The second factor which decides depth of field is magnification. More the magnification, shallow the depth of field. Lesser the magnification, greater the depth of field. I repeat, more the magnification, shallow the depth of field. Lesser the magnification, greater the depth of field. Now the magnification is decided by two factors. Number one is focal length and other is proximity of the camera to the subject. Now more the focal length, more will be the magnification. And what I said, magnification is more, the depth of field will be less. So that means more focal length, more magnification, less depth of field. Similarly, if the focal length is less, the magnification will be less and the depth of field will be more. Same way, if the subject is closer to the camera, the magnification will be more. And if the magnification is more, what will happen? It will result in a lesser depth of field. And if the subject is far away, the magnification is less and you have a greater depth of field. Look at these examples. In this case, I used a focal length of 200mm in one case and 70mm in another case, keeping all other parameters including the distance between camera to subject constant. And appreciate how the leaves and branches are clear in this relatively wide angle shot. Another example, these two photographs were shot using a 105mm micro lens with variable distance. Carefully observe the increased depth of field in the image shot with a greater distance. I will crop the image to resemble the first one so that you can judge better. I hope you imbibed this learning. And now a bonus tip. But before that, a humble appeal to subscribe to this channel and ring that bell icon so that you are notified each time I post a video. The bonus tip relates to microphotography because it is this genre where depth of field is more crucial. Magnification has the greatest impact on depth of field as compared to aperture. So if you are shooting micro and are stuck in a situation where you want an increased depth of field, then do so by pushing yourself a little back. If you think that it covers a more area and you are losing a tight crop by doing so, then use the in-camera crop facility. I have a full video on how to use in-camera crop facility. Watch it by clicking here. So till next time, keep exploring. Thank you.